Hello, everyone. It's Susan Gerbeck from Psychics Explained. Welcome back. This time, I'm going to be talking about a mother-daughter disappearance that happened in 2001, and they're obviously presumed dead. Bodies cannot be found, and the person who is this person of interest, is living his life, remarried, and living within the community. Police never were able to pin the crime on him, partly because they could not find the bodies. So the story was given to me by a friend of the channel and a friend of mine in real life named Kitty, who lives in New Hampshire. And Kitty explains that in New Hampshire, it is extremely wooded. So it's not like some areas where you can, it's be very difficult to hide a body. But in this area, it's hard to search and rescue, to be able to go out and walk around the woods. It's not flat. It's got, it's just very different. It's a very wooded area. So it makes it difficult to find the bodies if they're even in the forest, but it would be an ideal place apparently to leave them. So she brought this up to my attention. And the reason why, not only did it intrigue me because it's a long missing person case, was that they cannot prosecute the man because they do not have the bodies. And also because they called in a psychic. And the psychic that the family called in is a psychic that has been investigated and shown to be not much of a psychic. And her name is Clara Barron. And believe it or not, she's still around, even though people have investigated her and they've looked into her and so on. She's still around. She's still doing her thing. Very, very sad that this would happen, but that's what's going on. So I want to touch on the case really quickly, and then I'm going to tell you what happened with Clara Barron, and then also the response from the parents, well, from the family of the missing people. Okay, here's what happens. So according to the websites, and there's several websites and forums that are talking about this, here's the first one I'm going to share, which is the Charlie Project. And I've talked about this in another video as well. This is a website devoted to helping people help platform missing persons cases and to put them in a place where they're able to, as a whole, where you can find a lot of different cases. And they have 16,644 cases currently going right now. That's how much psychics love to help people, right? Not a single psychic has ever cleared up one of these cases. So what happens with Bethany and her mother, Tina, they are, and I'll put this link in the show notes so that you can look at it instead of me trying to read it out to you. I'll just sum it up. So Bethany is 18 years old and Tina's in her 30s, and they're living with a man who later is turned out to be a what is the YouTube term we're supposed to use for it? An offender, because he had, the YouTube word is harmed, but you know what that actually is. An 8-year-old, I think it was his daughter or somebody's daughter, and he went to prison for only 2 years. And so they're living with this man. They had been warned that by the family, had been trying to get her out. Said this man is dangerous. You shouldn't have anything to do with him. He went to prison afterwards. So he wasn't at the time that she was living with him. So let's please not blame the victims here. So DV, they call that term that we can use on YouTube. It's just silly that I have to use these words, but I mean, you all know what I'm talking about, but we still have to play this little game with YouTube to not use those words for whatever reason. So people, for various reasons, stay in relationships that are abusive. So Tina had been taking care of a man who was quadriplegic, and Bethany was a high school student, I believe. And so, according to Tina's boyfriend, who is the person of interest, he says that they had a fight and he left the house. He walked out and then he came back and he found that Tina and Bethany had gone and that they took their clothes and her car was there. It was 2001, so probably not a cell phone. Her car was there and her pets were there. I think it was a cat or several cats. And he says that they disappeared and he doesn't know anything about it. They're just gone. Now, there are witnesses reports saying that they saw the day after they disappeared that he was burning, he had a wood pile and he was burning things. And there's a lot of speculation that he was burning their clothes, the ones that supposedly were taken. And we don't know. And so it has been proven that the house, and then 10 days after they disappeared, some female voice, doesn't mean it's a female, called the school where Bethany was going to school and said she was sick and she wouldn't be coming in for a while. And that's it. They did a ton of different searches, but as I said, New Hampshire is an extremely difficult place to search. It's been 24 years because I'm recording this in February 12th, 2025. So it's been 24 years. And yeah, almost to the day, because it was February 4th. I think they disappeared. 2001. Let me see. Yeah, February 4th, 2001. And I'm recording this on February 12th, 2025. Sorry. So they don't know. They don't know anything. The police searched, everybody searched. They had crews out there searching for these people, mother and daughter, nothing. And so frustrating. Everybody knew that the person of interest was this boyfriend. And as I said, he was found guilty of harming an 8-year-old and went to prison for 2 years, got out. His brother hired him and he's working in a business. Well, I don't know what he's doing now. It's been 24 years, but he remarried. I tell you. Anyway, so what happened is according to the articles I read, they know who called and went to the school and said to the school, Bethany's out sick, but they're not releasing that information because of the police investigation. You would think that would be kind of important to know, and maybe some pressure after 24 years could be put on the person who was told that she wasn't coming to school, that might be enough, and that they haven't been, their bank accounts haven't been accessed, no sight of them. You would think that 24 years they would be able to do it, but no, for whatever reason, they can't do it. Chesterfield, New Hampshire. All right. So there are many different forums and so on talking about the case. So one of the forums is called websleuths.com. And I'll show you this. This is the forum. These are back in the day. I don't know how updated these are now, but back in the day, we used forums because we didn't have Facebook and so on to be able to do these kinds of discussions. So in this post, this is from 2005. So they're talking about, it's just discussions. And this woman here is named Mary Jo. And Mary Jo, she says she's a friend of the families, and she's, I guess, worked with the families, Tina and Bethany Sinclair's families. And she's very upset because what happened is, I guess in 2006, so 5 years or so afterwards, somebody decided that they were going to post on the newspaper that had been giving a lot of non-skeptical. I'll put this link on here too. You guys can read that if you want. So a newspaper had been giving a lot of like, oh, psychic Claire Barron was here and she was doing an investigation, and she was, talking about things that were making it sound like she was really helping. So this person wrote saying, that wasn't helpful. You are giving credence to the psychic, and that you shouldn't be doing this. And he was quoting the person who wrote the letter to the editor, was also quoting Project Jason, which is how I went back and did a deep research on Project Jason, which I cover in another video, probably right before this one. So this newspaper is called The Reformer. It ran two front page stories about self-proclaimed psychic investigator Clara Barron and her involvement with a case of two missing local women. Both stories were very positive and uncritical toward Miss Barron. The only skeptical content in either piece was a short quote from a law enforcement officer who said, in effect, that his department doesn't place much credibility in psychics. So now that years have gone by, they're hoping that this newspaper, The Reformer, would consider publishing a follow-up article, updating the public about what help, if any, Miss Barron's evidence has proved in solving the Sinclair case. I realize an article along the lines of "Psychic fails again" may possess the dog bites man quality that newspapers usually try to avoid. But it might serve to provide a more balanced and realistic picture, and it would give you another opportunity to mention Mrs. Barron's long history of exaggerated claims, self-serving statements as documented here. And that was the International IIG, which is an organization I used to belong to, and Mark Edward used to belong to, mainly in Los Angeles. We were involved from about 2009 till 2015, and then we kind of went on our own, and I started doing these investigations myself separately. And so the Independent Investigations Group, IIG, which is now called CFIIG, Center for Inquiry Investigation Group, they put out a little thing, and I'll put this in the show notes as well underneath this, and it talks about what happened with Clara Barron when she went to investigate this. Now I'll put this link in here, but it is kind of small, so I made a screenshot so I can blow this up a little bit easier to see. See if I can do that. That was my intention. All right. So what is going on here is this was she's 15 at the time. I'm so sorry. I had said 18. She was 15. So this is a mother-daughter, and it says, more than 2 years after the Sinclairs disappeared, they called Barron after seeing her on Court TV Psychic Detectives. I mean, shame on you, Court TV. Give me a break. And they got Clara Barron to come out, and it says, Clara Barron says that they're likely the victims of an angry, impulsive act, and their bodies were now somewhere dark. That's helpful. So, following Barron's instructions, Gary, who is Gary? Oh, Gary is a family spokesperson for the Sinclairs. Gary led a search party to some place that I'm not going to try to pronounce, a mount, where they combed an area that had already been thoroughly searched by police. The following month, they conducted another search. During both searches, Gary happened upon seemingly irrelevant clues. For example, she found a random sock and claimed it was unusual to be found in those areas. And she seems to imply that Barron's claims bore some legitimacy. Miss Gary also claims to have found a bucket and a shovel where a psychic said it would be. However, the name of that psychic was not given. The New Hampshire Attorney General had assigned Trooper so-and-so to be present during the search. He made it very clear that the police put no weight into what Clara Barron had said. He says he was present in case the citizens searched in the area and covered something to ensure their safety. However, many saw his presence as validating the search. Barron has posted several articles about her involvement on the website and even issued a press release. Nevertheless, 3 years later, the disappearance of Tina and Bethany Sinclair remains a mystery. Well, we're on year 24, and it still remains a mystery. Clara Barron has helped in no way possible. Okay, according to the forum, going back to the forum again, I guess that Gary woman is very upset because the James Randi Educational Forum, which I mentioned earlier, is a place where people before Facebook would go and talk about, investigations and so on and claims of the paranormal. She was really upset because not only did somebody post the talking about how Clara Barron was, not helping they posted it on the newspaper article, like a letter to the editor, but they also were talking about it on this James Randi Educational Forum website forum. And she was very upset. And she says that that's distracting from the case to be criticizing Clara Barron, because the focus should be kept on the people who are missing and not Clara Barron. And people were, responding to her and saying, how sorry they were that they'd upset her. But, she's free game. Clara Barron is free game because she's making this claim that she's found something, and it had been 3 years at that time, and she was no help whatsoever. And what it does is it just it plays on the family members and wastes police time. Again, you had a police officer out there for 2 different searches, and that gave legitimacy to the search, even though he was just there to make sure everything was, okay. And if something was found, there would be somebody from the police force to be able to, keep people from touching things and disturbing evidence and so on. So nothing had been found. I mean, you've got New Hampshire's is a small place, but it's actually very big if you're looking for 2 bodies. Very sad. And so to make it worse, she was very upset. This person, her name is Mary Jo, who says she's a friend of the family and so on. She says, is extremely upsetting to our search. The Tina's sister and Bethany's aunt thinks the world of Clara Barron and other intuitives, and that is not going to change. And we and I truly believe there are people that have God-given abilities to use in helping others, not just out to make a buck or to get public attention. Unless you personally know where Bethany and Tina are, don't follow our website postings around and don't have anything to do with us. So, yeah. She was very upset because they believe in psychic mediums and they think the world of Clara Barron, and that they believe that God-given rights, these people have God-given gifts that should be used. Okay, well, I wonder if she still thinks the same thing 24 years later. And it's not about blaming her. These are people in distress, and they're doing what they can with the best of their abilities back in 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. And you get desperate. And as I had said in my other video, that psychics pressure the families who are victims of this to say, well, what do you got to lose? There's nothing else. If you really want to find your loved one, you'll bring in psychics. And I have this specific psychic who will do it. And psychics also try really hard to latch themselves on to cold cases and missing person cases. They'll often say, I'll do it for free, which if they were to throw out something and it hits, is massive amounts of publicity. So it doesn't matter if they're doing it for free or not. They aren't, if they say a bunch of things and one thing ends up hitting, then all the other things are forgotten that they said. And the media latches on that one thing. Like, maybe there was a sock missing they found the bodies and a sock was missing. You know what I mean? It's just something like that. And besides, the psychic didn't say look for a sock, and the woman found a sock when they were searching. The woman who's searching found a sock. The psychic didn't say anything about a sock. Up in the hills, the sock's there. Hey, things move around. Socks fly in the wind. Socks can go. It doesn't mean anything. And if you recovered a sock 2 years afterwards, did you get it tested for DNA? No, she's already touched it and so on, and probably the police don't want to hear about it. Anyway, so the last thing I'm going to show you is that there is a website, a Facebook page still out. And it's just so sad for this family. The family has already had their family members die, not knowing what happened to their daughter and their granddaughter. But this website it's a Facebook page. Now we don't usually use forums. And you can see that they're constantly posting photos and asking for help, and somebody knows something, and can somebody please? I mean, this is 2020. They go about it again and start talking about it. They're upset about the person who is out working and living his life and now remarried, and who they think, don't join our group. Don't forget to join our group, Justice for Tina and Bethany Sinclair. More photos, bring them home. A family still searching for answers. We have reached 50 likes, and it's been 20 years. Don't forget to join both. We have 100 likes. We have some great ideas how not to bring some awareness. We have some great ideas on how to not only bring some awareness, but to do a little community activism. A green up day. We'd suggest a group of people clean up the town. Tina and her sister, Bethany, they will have justice. Tina's mom passed away without having any answers to what happened to her 2 girls. Someone knows something 20 years later. It sure eats away at you every day. Free yourself and come forward. Here's another episode on a podcast. Another year has passed with no answers. Someday they will get justice. Somebody knows something. Speak up and say something. Free yourself from the turmoil of holding on to the secret. Please keep them alive in your thoughts and prayers. Spring has sprung, and I'm off wandering in the woods thinking of them. And more photos. Justice for Bethany and Tina. Thinking of Tiffany. And this is February 3rd. So this was just the anniversary of the missing 24 years. And they're still posting on the grief is still strong. It's very hard to feel like you can move on from your grief if you can't, if something like this happens. And I'll just say this, one other thing that we forget about. Let's say that this man who they think did this, let's say he's not guilty. Just throwing it out there. What is it like for him to know that the people have gone, and he, for all these years, has been the person of interest? And it's very hard to move on with your life. A person who has remarried and has a job and has already gotten out of prison, it's still very difficult to move on with your life. Let's say he really didn't do it, and maybe somebody else did it. Okay, it's possible. No court case has been done. Nothing's ever, he hasn't been able to go to court. Oh, and the house was torn down. There was news reports of how people were freaking out because they didn't want the house torn down because there may be evidence there. But the police said they searched it really well, and they lived there, so there was evidence of them living there. But there's no, they can't find, I guess, the burn pit where supposedly he burned things right the day after the disappearance. It sounds like, so nobody came forward, or whoever it was supposed to come forward didn't come forward, or we just don't know. It's unlikely that they're still alive because they would have been found by now. People have to eat and have to have money, and she left her cat behind. Nobody's going to leave their cat behind. And you know what I mean? I'm laughing because that just seems absurd to me. So very sad. But again, Clara Barron did not help. She wasted time, wasted police time, got the hopes up of the family, had people searching around, finding a sock in a bucket, was no help whatsoever, and is using this on her own website to support that she's been helping. She helped. Well, if she really wanted help, and if she had any power whatsoever to solve any kind of crime whatsoever, she would have found these people and allowed this family to move on with their lives instead of having to constantly post, we need justice for Bethany and we need justice for Tina. So hold these psychics accountable, not just Clara Barron, but all psychics. They could easily, if they had any power whatsoever to communicate with the dead, they could easily connect with Clara and Tina. I mean, not Clara, Tina and Bethany, and ask them about their final moments and where their bodies would be found. Where would they be? I mean, it was only 2 years after that they talked to Clara. I don't see why there wouldn't have been some kind of remains. Anyway, this is pretty graphic, pretty depressing, but it is true. This is what we're dealing with. And remember to hold these psychics to account until they have started solving some crimes, which they say they're in communication with the dead. Then why are we platforming them? No media should give them any kind of coverage. And anytime you see something in print or a YouTube video or anything of the sort where they're giving like a infomercial or giving them non-skeptical presence to these psychics, which allow them to continue with the grift, constantly ask, why haven't you solved this case? Why hasn't this been done? Who have you found? Name the people you've found. Why is the database still have, what is it, 16,000 people in it? Why at just this one site, the Charlie Project? Why is there so many disappearances and you haven't solved a single one? Either you could and you're just a horrible human being, or you can't really communicate with the dead. You guys, hold them to account.